Welcome everybody to our newest live reaction segment of our Marvel Plus section on Zenith Crew, our live reaction / review section of Hawkeye, which we have decided to call
Two Archers, a Dog, and a Pizza Place.
So yes, as you all well know, we have intended to do a live reaction of the Hawkeye series back when it premiered on Thanksgiving week. Unfortunately, due to a series of events, plus my own unfortunate health, which as you can probably tell by my voice, we were not able to do that. We did, however, watch the 2 episodes just because we really wanted to avoid spoilers. Plus, we weren't aware that the first 2 were dropping at the same time, which, given how long they are, and given my current backlog of other videos on the channel, there was just no feasible way to just do 2 live reactions back to back of that. It would have taken me too long. It would have created an even further delay of things. Like, I probably wouldn't even be done with it by the time this series is done, let's be honest. So instead, we're going to be doing a straight-up review of the first 2 episodes, and they are called
Never Meet Your Heroes and Hide and Seek.
So yeah, as everybody knows, Hawkeye obviously is going to focus on Hawkeye, but it's also going to focus on the next Hawkeye, which is Kate Bishop. And the whole series starts when we see her as a kid in her rich penthouse in New York City.
In 2012.
In 2012, the year that the Avengers happened, the attack on New York happened, and all the shit happened. We see that she ends up losing her father amidst everything. We see that she sees Hawkeye for the first time and gets inspired by him, and it sets her on the path to basically becoming a master archer as well as an accomplished fighter, fencer, and so on and so forth. Basically putting her on the path to becoming a superhero, you know, as you do. Flash forward to the current year, which is about, 2 years after Endgame?
Yeah.
And we see that Clint is enjoying retirement. He's taking his kids on a trip to New York City to see the Steve Rogers musical.
Which is kind of appropriate given Steve's history in World War II.
Yeah, all those USO shows he put on. Although, from what I read, there actually was going to be a Captain America musical back in the 80s, but they scrapped it. Which, yeah, that was probably the right thing to do, because for all we know, it could have been the stage version with Red Brown.
And his translucent frisbee shield.
Actually, come to think of it, I would like to see that musical, to see how over the top they would have made it. It'd probably be like the Superman musical, but like cornier. But yeah, obviously I don't think this was the right thing for Clint to go to, because I think it kind of triggers some like PTSD flashbacks in a way.
Especially seeing Natasha portrayed on stage.
I imagine her loss is still pretty raw for him, and I get that this is supposed to be like a big cheery thing, like a big production of like all their battles and stuff, but that's still really hard to see.
Although we do get something interesting while he's watching the show. We see he's actually wearing a hearing aid.
I was wondering about that, honestly, because a lot of Hawkeye's appeal in the comics is that he's actually deaf, and that's part of what makes him a good archer, is because he can tune out everything, so his vision is extra sharp. But of course, in the movies, they never allude to that whatsoever, that he has a hearing problem. So you assume that they basically wrote that out of his character. But you actually see in this series, he actually does have a hearing aid. So I'm guessing he might be partially deaf, or at least hard of hearing.
Like, it looks like, based on what they were saying, it looks like he lost the hearing either through, a series of events through the movies plus whatever other jobs he's done. And he has also taught his children sign language, or at least his youngest.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Like, I approve of that. Kids should know how to do sign language, even if it's like the basic stuff. But yeah, I'm glad that they added that. I was a little confused, though, because he was only there with his kids, but not with his wife. And they don't really offer an explanation for that. She's just back home preparing stuff, and I guess she mentioned that it was like,
a chance for him to be alone with the kids.
A day out with Dad, but I'm like, but it's New York City. Like, why wouldn't you make that a whole family thing? I hate to reference it, but it kind of gave me How I Met Your Mother flashbacks, and that she was basically a side piece in that whole thing, and now here she's like a side piece as well.
I'm going to say either scheduling conflict or I have a relative sort of like this. my dad's cousin is married to someone, and they live in Colorado, and he apparently does not want to go east. Like, has a huge thing about it. Like, he refuses. So if my dad's cousin goes, he does not go with her. Outright refuses to do so. I don't understand it, but I'm sure he's not the only type of person like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad doesn't like to drive anywhere that's like more than like half an hour away. So I can understand that, but still, it's New York City on Christmas. Come on. But anyway, unfortunately, Clint really isn't the focus of the first episode. Like, we get the establishing center of where everything takes place, you know, how he is in New York City to begin with. But really, the whole episode focuses on Kate. Because, again, we flash forward to when she's in college, like, toward the end of college. She's 22 at this point, and, you know, she's into all these, like, groups and stuff. And we see that she uses her newfound master skills to perform a dare at the college to hit a bell that's on campus. And she does it, but ends up destroying the tower somehow in the process.
But it's okay, because it's named for Obadiah Stane.
I mean, I guess that makes it okay, but still, it's like, you're trying to promote this new superhero, and the way you get them to show off their skills is not through them doing anything heroic or anything cool or daring. It's them doing a stupid college school dare or whatever. And yeah, granted, it was impressive she was able to hit it from where she was, but still, that was like, why would you do that, and why would you risk your place in college and on the teams just for a dare? I know they're college students, and college students are stupid, but still. We also find out that her mother eventually, what was his name again? I know he's like a character from the comics, and he's like supposed to be a villain. I know his name is Jack. I think it's Jack Duquesne. I'm not sure. I can't remember for the life of me. Apologies. Yeah. But yeah, he's the new stepdad, and you know, he's super rich. Her mom's apparently rich too. And, you know, she's a rich girl. She's expected to go to these high society events and whatnot. So that pretty much the whole main crux of everything takes place at this high society party where Kate overhears one of Jack's relatives making a threat against her mom. Because for whatever reason, the guy, like, badmouths her mom to her. You know, saying, like, oh, I don't approve of them being together, and I don't approve of their engagement, And I'm like, why are you telling her daughter this? That is such a dick thing to do. It's like you're begging to be murdered. Foreshadowing. But yeah, obviously the guy's being sketchy, so Kate decides to tag after him. He and Jack end up going to, like, this underground auction in the wine cellar. Like, I gotta admit, that's pretty unique. I've never really seen anything like that. Like a black market, like, auction that takes place during a high society party in the winery basement. And it's,
you know, where anybody could just stumble upon it.
Mm-hmm. But I gotta admit, it's one bitchin', like, winery cellar. I've been in ones before, but that one was, like, really extravagant, and I gotta give kudos to the set designers for that. Oh yeah, we should mention that Kate coincidentally happened to dress in an all-black tux as opposed to a dress, which just so happens to be the same outfit that the waiters wear, which, convenient, she's able to blend in and actually, like, look in on the auction to see what's going
for the
on.
most part, except they start sniffing her out, and she,
gets caught by Gary.
She plays it a little too, overplays her hand, by Gary,
Well, then you know why I'm quitting, Gary.
Gary!
So during the auction, one of the things that they end up selling is Hawkeye's old Ronin costume. Not just his costume, but his sword as well. So those are two, like, big, like, items, both of which Jack and his uncle bid on, but his uncle outbids him. And that's when the attack happens, because there has to be an attack.
Although, so apparently it's the tracksuit mafia.
God, that's such a stupid name.
Yeah. They're not after the Ronin, although the Ronin is an enemy of the tracksuit mafia. Mm-hmm. They came for something else from the Avengers compound.
Yeah, they didn't really specify, did they?
No, like, I think they were looking for a key or something. No, a watch.
They
were looking for a watch.
Mm-hmm.
In the ensuing chaos, the Ronin suit gets dropped, and Kate sees it and decides to use it as a way to escape, so nobody recognizes her. Unfortunately, that attracts the attention of the tracksuit mafia, who has issue with the Ronin.
I gotta say, it kind of baffled me how that outfit was, like, so recognizable at first sight for, like, everybody involved. I'm like, it looks like a generic, like, ninja outfit with a hood. What makes it so special? It's not like the fucking Batman costume where you can instantly see on sight. It's not like Spider-Man's costume. Did you see a symbol on it or something that I missed?
No. I mean, unless Clint was doing a really bad job of not being seen. I mean, granted, the news was apparently reporting on it.
Somehow the news knew about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Wasn't he wearing it during the 5-year period between
I know he did it during that 5-year period, but he was supposed to be like an underground assassin who went after criminals.
Yeah,
you
I would
think
have
this would
figured
be all on the down low?
Yeah,
and,
he'd
like,
be underground. He wouldn't really be showing up on anybody's radar.
Because I can understand maybe the tracksuit gang recognizing him if they dealt with him enough. But I don't get how the news media knows that. That just baffles me.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, Kate manages to fight them off and escape. And during her escape, she ends up rescuing a stray dog who just shows up. He's just, like, there, and he has one eye. Poor thing. So she saves him, it gets caught on camera, that gets leaked to the news media, and that's how Clint ends up seeing her. And he thinks that somebody has taken up his old mantle, is now killing people in his place. So he, of course, goes to put a stop to this, ends up saving Kate from the gang, then realizes she's just a stupid kid wearing his outfit, and has just dragged him back into a whole world of drama that I'm sure he did not need, especially during this holiday season. So that was the first episode, and I gotta say, I was not impressed with it. I don't know about you. I didn't.
No.
For something that's supposed to be a pilot for Hawkeye, there wasn't that much Hawkeye. At least not Clint's Hawkeye. Because, again, he's happy going on vacation with his family, and then this stupid rich girl starts causing problems for really no real reason.
Not to mention, her thing is, training in archery and fencing. And she spends most of this episode being a spy.
Like, I get part of the crux is that she heard her mother was being threatened. So she wanted to find out more about that. I get that, but other than that, she really had no reason to, get involved in any of this. She had no reason to put on the suit at all, for starters. I get she wanted to hide her identity, but come on. It feels like she just stumbled into all this on accident, and she didn't even get what she came there for. In fact, as we see in the next episode, the guy that she's suspicious of wanting to hurt her mom ends up dead. So there goes that. I don't want to, say this, puts me off at Kate, but, the fact that she's just, a rich girl who lived in a position of, privilege and everything, her motive to become a superhero doesn't make a lot of sense. And I guess because her father died, she wants to be able to protect herself and her mother when the time comes. But there's really not much else motivating it. And plus, her mom's head of a security company. You'd think she'd already be in a position to protect herself. And she's marrying a guy with money. That's the natural protection right there.
Although her mother doesn't seem to be showing very good judgment either, because she neglects to even mention that she's dating somebody else until Kate shows up for the, for the holiday.
Well, I don't know if she neglected to say that she was dating him. I think she knew he was dating him. She didn't know that they were engaged. Because the uncle ends up telling her that. That's how she finds out. I'm like, why wouldn't you tell her something important like that before you go to a party where everybody else knows?
I get the mother is upset because now she has to pay to replace the bell tower, and she's probably not thinking too clearly. But you would have thought news like this is something that she would have mentioned a lot earlier. I mean, it's not like it's hard to communicate. We have Zoom, we have Skype, we have whatever they're using in the 5-year future from now to communicate. You could text or call, quick methods of communication, and you fail to mention any of this at any time.
Yeah, I don't get it either, honestly. And speaking as someone who has 2 divorced parents, both of which remarried, it is usually common courtesy for either the parent or the potential step-parent to ask the kids for permission. Like, at least as a courtesy. Just to say, I plan on marrying your mom, or I want to marry your dad, or something like that. Or, I plan on marrying this person. Just to let the kids know, just to gauge their reaction. And yeah, not every kid is going to give their blessing, and not every parent is going to require the blessing. But it's common courtesy. You don't just spring that shit on somebody, especially to a kid that lost a parent in such a tragic way.
I would assume this is not the first person that the mother has been dating since the attack.
I know that too, but still, like, you don't spring an engagement like that,
No.
especially when you do it to strangers first before your own daughter. That's messed up. But now we move on to episode 2. That's where we get the official team-up of Kate and Clint. Clint obviously knows how dangerous these guys are, or at least how dangerous they are to her. Like, to him, they're pretty much a bunch of jokers that he can handle on his own, but because he has the baggage of both his family being in town as well as her and all the shenanigans that she pulled, he now basically has to do cleanup duty for both. So he unfortunately has to send his family back home without him while he deals with this. He goes with Kate back to her apartment to get the outfit, but unfortunately, because she was stupid enough to stop back at her apartment after she rescued the dog, the gang knows where she lives and they attack. And her apartment ends up getting burned down in the process. They unfortunately had to leave and left the suit behind. So Clint ends up taking her to a safe house. It was like her aunt's house or something. And he goes back to get the suit, but unfortunately it's gone. And it turns out that one of the firefighters had actually taken it, which I didn't think they were allowed to do that. Because especially in a case like this where it's clear arson, you would think that the police would get that first, not let firefighters just keep something like that.
He may have taken it without them knowing.
I know, that's still messed up, though, for a firefighter? Like, come on.
Which, it's kind of funny, too, given that Clint goes to one of the fire trucks parked outside and steals what I guess is a spare suit. And, goes in to, check in the apartment to look for the suit, seeing it is nowhere to be found. And then he goes back out and returns the firefighting suit, only to discover there's a LARP tag on the fire truck.
I'm surprised they allow that, honestly. You think they're not allowed to put, like, personal detail on, like, public vehicles like that? That'd be like if you put, like, a Star Trek sticker on the back of a police car. But yeah, he makes the deduction that whoever took it obviously was into LARP, and he somehow manages to come across a TikTok of the actual guy who does have the outfit in his possession. So, big leap of luck right there. Like, thank God for that.
Luck or stupidity?
So he has no choice but to end up going to the LARP session, which is taking place in Central Park for some reason, in the dead of winter. Like, I've never been to a LARP session. I've seen them held at conventions, but I would think for the most part LARPers would, A, not be gathering in Central Park, which is, let's face it, one of the most dangerous things you could possibly do, especially if you're a friggin' nerd, and 2, having this large event, again, in the dead of winter, because this is like 6 days before Christmas. Like, nobody's going to want to be outside, even in heavy armor and costume, for that long a period just to do fake fighting. Like, come on.
Now, apparently this chapter, they're pretty business-oriented. Apparently they're a big deal because you can't enter without payment. They're really strict about the rules. Like, you can't even just come in there and talk to somebody or, have that somebody pulled out. If you want to talk, you either have to wait till the session ends or you have to go in there and engage with them in LARP.
And they need, like, emails and credit card numbers. I'm like, Jesus fuck.
This is a bit much. Again, I can't really speak for LARPing. I've never done it. but I didn't think it was this big of a business.
Like, I get it, some events need organization, especially if they're trying to go for authenticity, like getting replica weapons or armor, or if they're, like, setting up the settings, or if they're, like, lending borrowed costumes or something. But, yeah, that was a bit much, since I always assumed that, like, LARP sessions was basically, like, clubs meeting up at their own expense. That threw me a bit.
I didn't even think there was any real organization, except for, like you said, if they do it at a convention. Mm-hmm. I figured they'd just kind of find a space and do their thing.
I'm sure somebody in the comments will correct us.
If obviously we need to be educated.
But yeah, Clint goes through the hoops and everything. He enters it. He finds the guy, and, you know, he demands the suit back. Thankfully, the guy's willing to work with him, but in exchange, he wants to have, like, a one-on-one battle, because obviously everybody knows who Clint is, and he believes it'll make him look really good if he manages to defeat Hawkeye in battle, even though it's mock battle. So Clint, just for the sake of keeping peace and getting this done with, goes along with it. They stage the fight, he defeats him, and the guy is, like, hailed a hero and gives him back the suit. Hopefully that guy's out of danger, because I did end up liking that guy by the end.
What was his name?
Grills.
Grills, yeah. Because, apparently there's a character in the comics named Grills.
Yeah, he doesn't meet a good fate, and I hope that's not the case in this, because I'm like, the guy was just borrowing an outfit. I hope he doesn't get killed because of that. Even though what he did was kind of wrong, but whatever. But
at least, like, Clint acts pretty friendly toward him in the end. Given the situation, he is courteous and polite toward him, at least. Like, call me Clint.
Mm-hmm. I was getting a bit annoyed with Clint this episode because, like, he was so, like, hell-bent on, like, everything, and he wasn't just, like, going with the punches, even, like, if he was, it was reluctant and stuff. Like, the scene should have been a lot more fun than it should have been, but you feel so much of his, like, frustration and everything, it just, like, kind of tainted it all. But then again, it's appropriate because, you know, his vacation got ruined because of this. I don't know, like, I felt like I should have had a lot more fun watching this than we ended up having.
It's not helped by Kate either.
Yeah, because she ends up meeting up with her mom at her company, and Clint hopes that that's the end of it, that she's at a safe place, so once he takes care of the costume and deals with the gang, that'll be the end of it. But of course she won't let it go, because not only is she convinced that her stepdad has something to do with the murder of his uncle, because part of the whole thing that got her roped into this is that while fleeing, she tries to confront the guy and finds out he's been murdered. Not just murdered, stabbed with a sword. And given her stepdad apparently is collecting swords, that leads her to believe that he was responsible for it, especially given that the guy apparently made a threat against her mom, so it gives a motive.
Not to mention there's also something that came up when Kate goes into the mansion and finds the candies, the caramels.
The monogram candies with his personal thing. I'm like, wow, that's a plot device if I ever saw one. They had to stop and actually point that out. And then the guy later on is like, oh, you want a candy? Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, just stamp guilty on your fucking forehead, why don't you? And yes, I know it's obvious that he's probably going to be a bad guy in this, because his character in the comic is a bad guy. But, as we'll get to later, I think there's going to be more to it in terms of that.
Once Clint has locked away the Ronin costume,
he goes to finally confront the gang, and they capture him. But of course, it's all set up by him, because, you know, he wants to make this easy, go straight to them, take care of the problem, have it done. But as we said, Kate can't leave well enough alone, and has to get involved, so she ends up tracking Clint down to the place, and tries to rescue him, only to get caught herself. That's where we leave off from the second episode, with them both tied up, and the gang alerting their leader that they have caught Ronin. And the leader turns out to be this character that we're probably going to see a lot more of later, Maya Lopez, or as other people know her, Echo. We're going to get introduced to her the next episode and see what her deal is about with all this, and why the hell she's part of a gang with such a lame gimmick and name. So yeah, the second episode, I guess, was slightly better than the first in that it focused on Clint a lot more, or at least it divided his time with Kate a lot better than the previous episode did. Even then, I don't know, like, I still am not really sold on this series.
Honestly, I didn't even really care for either episode. Both episodes felt very long.
They did, honestly, because this took place over the course of, a day and a half? But it felt like it was a week or something. I mean, I wasn't really in the position where I was, checking my watch in that I was bored. It was more just everything felt, really drawn out. And it's weird because a lot of stuff happens. Boom, boom, boom after the other. It's first she suspects something's going on with her mom and the guy's uncle. Then she finds out about the Ronin costume. Then she finds out about the gang attacking. Then she finds out about the guy being murdered. And it just escalates from there consistently. And then you just watch Clint basically play cleanup to all this afterwards. And it becomes frustrating because you know that Kate's going to end up just messing it all up.
And I mean, we know there's going to be, certain things that we're going to have to address, like the Ronin costume itself and Clint's hearing. They'll probably be discussing that.
Well, I think from what I read, Echo is actually deaf. So considering that Clint is deaf, I guess it gives them something in common. Because I believe she speaks in sign language. Because you see at the end of the episode, the guy is sort of semi-signing to her.
I also remember her putting her hand on the amp, as if to, feel the vibration.
I'm guessing that's how we're going to be able to communicate with her is through Clint. As I mentioned before in my live reaction trailer, I don't know anything about the character of Echo. And I know that she's supposed to have her own series later down the line. I'm hoping she's a compelling enough character to warrant that series. So I'm at least intrigued enough to see what her story is in regards to all this. But as it stands, I'm not sold on this series quite yet. It honestly feels like one of those reluctant apprentice type situations. You have the retired superhero that just wants to live a normal life, and then you have this young, up-and-coming superhero that ends up dragging him back and everything, that has to clean up their mess and ends up becoming a mentor to them.
Oh, yeah, and we also have more of the inappropriate, can I have your autograph moments.
I love somebody asked for his autograph while he was taking a piss, and then later, right after when he was washing his hands, I'm like, dude, social etiquette, come on. And what the fuck was up with the graffiti? Thanos was right? What does that mean exactly? Thanos was right to wipe out half of existence?
I'm gonna guess that's a person that doesn't like people. Which I can relate to.
I can understand that too, but still, dude, you lived through 5 years of that and saw all the problems it caused. Do you really think that was the right thing to have happened?
Like I said, I'm not saying they're right, but I am saying I can see where they're coming from if that is their motive.
You watch, it was like a flag smasher.
And then you even have Kate trying to get Hawkeye to sign her bow, and meanwhile it's like, your life is on the line right now. What are you doing? I'm
wondering how the dog's going to come into play exactly. I get at this point it's kind of become I guess a meme or something that all of these Marvel and Star Wars and so on is having these character mascots. I mean, look at the wall behind us. But even so, I'm just trying to figure out how the dog factors into all this. Is he just there as the animal sidekick, or is he gonna be a key thing to something? I guess we'll see. I believe in the comic they call him Lucky the Pizza Dog.
I remember Pizza Dog. I knew that, but I couldn't remember what the real name was.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to it.
Yeah.
So obviously we don't know what the title of the next episode is, because the other Marvel and Star Wars TV shows, they don't release the titles until it actually premieres, so we'll have to wait on that. We're going to try to get back to the live reactions for the third episode, again, depending on how I feel, depending on how I do with backlog. But yeah, stay tuned, and next time we'll see what happens when Clint finally meets Echo. So until next time, I'm Kat MacBerrie.
I'm Doug MacBerrie.
And because we know this is going to be a Die Hard parody, Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Barton. Unfortunately, due to a series of events, plus my unfortunate health, as you can probably tell by my voice, we were... God damn it, Grogu.
As you talk about an unfortunate series of events, too.
You just commit suicide. Damn it, Grogu, stop being drunk. Let's try that again.